Hello, you're very welcome along to the Matchbook World Cup podcast. It's hard to believe it's the round of 16 now. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined as always by Adrian, Clarke, Mark O'Hare, and live from Qatar, Miguel, Delaney. We're going to cover a small bit on the outright and then get straight into the 8 round of 16 games. Some fascinating ties, and we'll cover a little bit of the draw in that outright section. So before we get to you, Mark, on just your outright pick, we'll go to you first. We'll take a look at the betting as we have it on matchbook.com. This is a fascinating market, obviously. Brazil are 3.45 favourites, Argentina 6.2, France 6.4, Spain 8.0, England 10s, Portugal 14.5, Netherlands 23, and then you've Croatia 40, Switzerland 85, and Japan 90, and then we're into the three figures. Mark, a country I have got on board with here, Switzerland. In some ways, you can make the argument they won't fear any of these European teams they'll have on their way to the final. In other ways, they're going to be underdogs in every game. So maybe the 85 isn't as good as I probably initially thought when I first saw it there this morning.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really wanted to be with Switzerland in the outright market, whether it's just a long shot or a potential back to lay. But I need three figures to get on board with them, to be in all honesty, because the route to the final is devilishly difficult, isn't it? So it's Portugal, then probably Spain, then probably England or France before a possible final. So therefore, pretty tough hurdles to try and overcome. I wouldn't sort of dismiss them as no hopers, nothing like that whatsoever. And we'll get to their match against Portugal. They've got good results against both Portugal and Spain already this calendar year. They gave Brazil a very good run for the money. They've got a side that's built on strong foundations, very much sort of continuity and consistency about them. I like the blend in midfield. And I actually think up front right now, Mbolo's playing really well. He's fit, he's firing, and Okafor is a great option off the bench too. So plus the emotional kind of momentum of that victory over Serbia can carry them through. Wasn't that long ago they knocked France out of the Euros. They brought Spain to the penalty shootout, and Spain were considered to be the best team at the Euros. So there is pedigree there. But yeah, as you say, they're going to be pretty hefty outsiders in every game so far. So I'd probably want three figures before kind of getting involved in them. But out of the kind of the longer price bets, they were the team I really want to get behind. But the draw is just it's quite off-putting.
Yeah, like for someone who has pulled the trigger on Switzerland, I'm looking forward to just being so nervous watching them being underdogs, as I said, in any of those, hopefully in a couple of games. But it is a fun team to support as well. And I was very impressed with them against Serbia. Adrian, someone was giving us stick a couple of in the comments about Argentina not winning the World Cup. Suddenly this draw has opened up unbelievably. Like they could get to the semi-final, cruise to a semi-final, and maybe obviously be slight underdogs against Brazil.
Yeah. Look, they were my pick at the start. After 1.5 games, it looked like a shocker of a pick, but I've been impressed with them since. I really have. I think they've built momentum. They've shown that they're capable of scoring great goals, and I think that makes a difference in tight matches. You need match winners. You need players that can unlock the door, and I think they've got a plethora of them. You also look at some of the data. No one's faced fewer shots than Argentina in the tournament so far. 1 or 2 dicey moments in that first game. But I like the momentum that they've got. They're sort of swarming all over teams, suffocating them, press. And Messi looks in very good form. So I'm going to stick with them. But I think I actually think England look all right value at 10s. I do. I think that, they should get past Senegal. And, the France game, for me, they'll be slight underdogs. But if they get through that, I think they can make the final. I really do. But Argentina, I'm going to stick with them.
Okay, Miguel, over to you. I guess probably one team that's impressed us is Spain. Maybe take us back to that third group game, because a lot of theories going around that not that they went out to lose, but at 2-1 down, it wasn't the end of the world. But obviously for 2 minutes they were out of the tournament and Costa Rica were through, so it's a bit wild anyway.
Yeah, Luis Enrique then subsequently claimed he didn't know they were out. I've kind of been thinking about that game a lot because I was at it and it was chaotic to report on. And I do think they did raise some concerns for Spain, and there was an arrogant complacency to the performance that we've seen actually a few times in this tournament, particularly when they went ahead against Germany. But I'm some of that was they went into that game thinking they were through, regardless of whatever happened of first or second. I think that's kind of the main indicator of performance, and that's I think it's seen people go off Spain, but I believe they're well able to raise it, as Mark has referenced there, as we saw at the Euros against Italy. They're well capable of going up a level. And I think that could start to tell now as we get into the last 16. So, I mean, like Brazil have been the most impressive side overall of the tournament. But, and their odds at this point are so low. And I don't think Brazil are good enough to justify that extent of price. Whereas there's potential value in Spain for the matter they can raise it. Like, I think they could beat Brazil. And now play them. It'll be in the final rather than the quarterfinal.
Yeah. So there's some fascinating games, and obviously Spain finished second, like Miguel touched on, has opened the draw for them. So a couple of picks in the outright. This is a fun market to watch. Sometimes I'd go on a half time just to see how the market has reacted. So it is an in-play market on Matchbook. You'd be surprised if your a team you want to get on board is 1-0 down. Well worth checking out if you want to maybe back them on the outright, perhaps. So Mark has tentative selection for Switzerland, just maybe as a fun outsider, but he isn't officially pulling the trigger. Adrian's happy with Argentina, but does also think England are overpriced. And Miguel with Spain. We'll get to the 8 games, and we're going to absolutely race through that because there's some brilliant football. And we'll take a look at the betting. This game kicks off today, 3 o'clock UK time. Netherlands can be back to 2.06. The US, 4.4. The draw is available at 3.4. Both teams to score no is 181. The Asian handicap line sees the US get a half-goal start at 192, and the goal line is 2.25. So we'll go to you on this one, Adrian. You're expecting, I'm taking a cagey game, even though like the US do play on the front foot.
Yeah, it's not necessarily cagey. I just don't think either side are full of goals. We don't know how good the Dutch are, do we? I think Gakpo's obviously caught the eye with some flashes of brilliance, but as a team, they've not convinced. Out of the 32 sides that started, Holland ranked 26th for the most shots, so they're not exactly firing off that many. In terms of shots faced, they're below halfway as well. So I've been a little bit underwhelmed by them. America, fair play to them. We sort of poo-pooed them at the start, but they've surprised me. Tactics been good, excellent organisation, good game intelligence. Midfield has been outstanding with Adams and Musa and McKinney. But they don't score many goals and they don't have a lot up front, do they? Yeah, I see this as being low scoring. I think that there's every chance that one or both of Netherlands and USA will blank in this game. I don't think it'll be. Yeah, I think we saw with USA against England, they can keep things very tight. They can limit you, and I think they can do that to the Netherlands. But then if the Netherlands do make a breakthrough, have America got what it takes to come back? I don't know if they've got the firepower. So yeah, BTTS no for me.
Okay, Miguel, you're in agreement.
Yeah, I think this will be a 1-0, probably to Holland, but I don't rule out the fact it could be USA. Totally agree with Adrian there. I mean, the Dutch are basically a backloaded team. The US, I've been quite impressed with intensity, but that intensity doesn't really translate into many goals. So I think this, I mean, you can almost see the pattern of the game, and my instinct is almost that the Dutch will pick them off, but just for safety, I'd go BTTS no rather than say a 1-0 for Holland.
Yeah, Miguel referenced safety. I think Adrian and Miguel have put that safe selection, both teams to score no. And maybe, perhaps against your nature, Mark, you've put up 2 selections here, one at 2.56 and 4.0. And I do like this for anyone who wants a small interest bet here this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything the guys have already said, to be honest. I just think stylistically, this match might actually suit the Americans being underdogs. That energy we've talked about, not just in midfield, but in fullback areas. I think they can be awkward opponents for this Dutch team who have underwhelmed. They've looked ordinary in attack, as Adrian has talked about. And I think despite the individual talent they have in defence, they've looked shaky, they've looked fragile. There's a mistake in those defenders, despite their illustrious names, if you like. Depay's not fully fit either. Gakpo's been scoring at an unsustainable rate, really. Sort of 3 goals from 4 shots on target. And as Adrian says, in terms of what the Dutch have been doing in the final third, they're averaging just 5 shots in the box per game. And you consider one of those games was against Qatar. It's not exactly encouraging, really. And I think the way in which the Americans set up against England, and not just that, I think they probably had one poor 45 minutes in the whole tournament so far, which was the second half against Wales. So as long as Pulisic is okay, which we think he probably will be, I think they can cause Holland a few issues here, and I think they can be competitive in this match. So, yeah, the draw under 2.5 goals is a 3-1 shot. If you look at tournament football, particularly in the knockout stages and the last 16, the draw percentage hikes quite considerably, and the goals per game decreases quite considerably. Low goal expectancy increases the chance of a draw. So quite happy to sort of get that on board, and then obviously oppose a goal in the first half as well, which we've seen throughout the competition has been quite a consistent winner. So it should in theory be heightened by the fact that this is knockout football, and we've got an American team who are pretty well set up and capable of being competitive.
Okay, yeah. So draw and under 2.5, as Mark mentioned, 4.0 currently on Matchbook. And if you do, which the first half under 0.5 first half goals, 2.56, and both teams to score no for the guys at 1.76. We'll move on to Saturday night's game, and this is Argentina versus Australia. And we'll take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Argentina at 1.27, Australia 14.5. The draw is available at 6.6. Both teams to score a yes is 3.0, no is 1.48. Australia getting a 1 3/4 goal start on the Asian handicap line, and 2.5 is the total. Miguel, I said it to Adrian in the outright, but Argentina were also your pick. Are you happy enough where they're at the moment, given the rocky start?
I still think that they're just too subject to events going against them. I mean, if momentum is with them, I mean, this is, I suppose, this classical Argentina. The highs are very high and the lows are very low. But they do have a tendency for events to go against them. And we saw this in the Saudi Arabia game, where they suddenly believe it's not their day. And that has some potential with Australia, I think. But it's basically Australia's best opportunity to actually win this game. I think if everything goes as normal, which maybe does feel it is the case for the moment at Argentina, that they can actually win this and win it quite heavily due to Australia, what France did to them. So I'm going for, with maybe a few caveats, but Argentina over 2.5.
Yeah, I have complete agreement, Adrian, as well on the overshouts. It's tough sometimes with a team this favoured to kind of go with them, and how do you compare them? But you like the over 2.5 here. You're expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the unders and the overs because Australia have been pretty tight, haven't they? At the back, they've been very well organised. I think Harry Suter has been outstanding. That midfield, it's modest on paper, but they've all been organised really well by the head coach Arnold. So kudos to them. I got Australia wrong as well, a little bit like America. I didn't expect them to still be here, but so well done to them. But yeah, there's only one team that faced more shots than Australia in that group phase, even though they kept a couple of clean sheets. That was Costa Rica. So they've faced a lot. They've had to absorb plenty, and they'll have to absorb a lot, I think, against Argentina. And yeah, I just feel momentum's with them, and that they can grind down a pretty stubborn Socceroos side. And yeah, they might be able to cut loose towards the end of the game. So yeah, Argentina and over 2.5 was my pick as well.
Yeah, 2.12 the price of that currently. Mark, you are going to go with the unders here. It's just a little bit safer for you. Is it an Australia angle, or is it an Argentina easing off angle, or a bit of both?
Yeah, a bit of both, really. I expect Argentina to win to 0, but we can't back that at a price which is worthwhile. So then it's a case of do Argentina score 4 goals or more? And yeah, there's a chance that they get this game done and dusted early doors and bring off the big guns and then start preparing for the quarterfinals. There's that. There's also the fact that Australia, as Adrian says, will be well set up and aren't likely to kind of go down easily. You can look to the France game and say, well, if France can score 4 goals, why can't Argentina? But France have got Kylian Mbappe, and that's just unbelievable pace, which Argentina don't have. Julian Alvarez has made a great impact as the central striker, but I don't think Argentina have that kind of threat that France certainly do. So, even through qualification, Brazil scored 13 goals more than Argentina. This is a team which is a team, basically. It's not built around any individual. Of course, Messi's there, but they're not a team that kind of wipes the floor with teams, demolishes them. They just get the results and move on. So that was my thought process. Argentina, as Adrian has already touched on as well, have only given up 0.25 expected goals so far, 3 shots on target and 6 shots in the box across 3 matches, which is unbelievable figures. I know the opposition are pretty middling, but that's pretty formidable. So I can't see Australia scoring. So it's genuinely a case of just trying to get Argentina on side in some way or form. I guess the smarter way might be to back the 2-0 and 3-0 or even the 4-0. Correct scores, you'll get bigger price and you can kind of Dutch them and get a nice return then if they do win 2-0.
Okay, yeah. So whatever way you want to go, that's a better. It is pro Argentina angles. Argentina under 3.5, 1.85 for Mark, and Adrian Miguel going with 2.12 shot of Argentina and the over 2.5. So look, 3-0 and everyone gets in on that one. So we'll move on to the next game and another sort of one-sided game here on Sunday, 3 o'clock. And look, for me, Poland have been awful, but we'll take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. France 1.35, Poland 13.0. The draw is available at 5.4. Both teams to score no is favoured at 1.63. The Asian handicap line is 1.5 to Poland, and the total is 2.5. Mark, the thing I can say about Poland that sums it up for me is all they remind me of is a Trapattoni Ireland team. That's all I can't get my hand. I've watched all 270 minutes of them this tournament, and I just can't get that comparison in my head.
Yeah, no adventure, no ambition, just playing for a point at the best of times. Dreadful. I mean, I can't really say the words I'd like to say to describe Poland's performances so far, but their shot tallies have read 6, 9, and 4. They've conceded 50 attempts and they've conceded 36 attempts from inside the penalty area. Szczesny's made penalty saves. You know, if you look at the sort of non-penalty expected goals figures, they're basically performing as a bottom 6 team out of all 32. They've basically been losing the non-penalty expected goals battle by an average of 0.84 across their first 3 games, which, if you were sort of looking at Premier League terms, you'd be looking at a Norwich City from a couple of years ago. Like, it's pretty dismal stuff, and I just don't understand the game plan. Just put players behind the ball and then just hoof it towards Lewandowski and hope he kind of picks up the ball, but he's so isolated. And the annoying thing is they've got players of talent, and they've got players of talent in forward areas. That's where their strength is at, but they've just stunk the place out, really. And I worry for them here. It's not often I would kind of try to look and get a decent handicap start or oppose a big handicap, but I think France -1.5 at evens is fair enough, really. If they score early, this could get ugly. Poland are going to have to come out and play at some point. And, you know, it's not just Mbappe. Dembele's playing brilliantly. Griezmann's showing good form. Giroud's scoring. You've got Kingsley Coman off the bench as well. You know, they're just stacked in forward areas. I think France, obviously, bigger tests will come, but they should be able to pass this pretty comfortably.
Yeah, Miguel Lewandowski, like a lot of people saying, he's not playing well at times, like particularly against Argentina. Like, I thought he did what he could up there, like alone. And every time the ball got to him, I thought he was laying it off, but maybe not. I look at Twitter and then everyone's saying he's playing dreadful, but it's the team he's playing in, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you couldn't have a clearer example of a team not playing to their best player's strength. I mean, I was kind of shocked. I mean, the Argentina game was obviously an extreme example, but even before that, in the Saudi Arabia game and the Mexico game, it was essentially just bypassing the team, Szczesny often lumping it to Lewandowski, and then trying to make something out of nothing, which is invariably impossible. And it's essentially a waste of a player that good. Yeah,
and for this, in terms of an angle, so you're going for France win, and the 3.5 to goal line, over, under, or what's the thinking?
I just think Poland are probably robust enough to frustrate France, but France will have too much quality. I mean, I would almost think with correct score, it'll be 2-0. Maybe France not as sturdy as 2018. As you can see through the midfield, but they are more open, and I can almost see this being a 2-1 or 2-0 to France. So what I think France will go through, maybe just to play it safe, under 3.5.
Okay, and you're in complete agreement with that, Adrian. You're a lot of agreeing with Miguel this morning, Adrian.
Hey, what's going on? There's something in the water. Yeah, that's how I see it. It's really based on Poland's tactics, which obviously, as the guys have outlined, are mega defensive. Did look at the last 7 Poland matches, all under 2.5. 0-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-1. They are a dull team to follow, but with Szczesny in such good form, and let's face it, they haven't given up that many goals. They could frustrate France, but yeah, having rested pretty much their entire team as well, you expect France to be nice and fresh for this one. I can't see them not winning, but I can see Poland restricting them a little bit. For what it's worth as well, I looked at the France v Poland head-to-head, and the last 5 matches between the two nations have served up a total of 4 goals. So this is traditionally a stinker of a fixture to watch. So yeah, France and under 3.5 for me as well.
A lot of England fans, it's the undercard for them in the pub. So yeah, so look, if there's a couple of ways in, the lads a bit cautious. Adrian, Miguel, France and under 3.5. Expect them to get the job done, and Mark's going for it on that Asian handicap line of 1.5 to cover. So 7 o'clock, the big game for English fans and a lot of people listening this weekend is England-Senegal. We'll take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com for Sunday evening's fixtures. England could be backed at 1.58. Senegal 8.0. The draw is 4.0. Both teams to score. No is a good bit favourite at 1.63. The Asian handicap line sees Senegal get a 1-goal start, and the total is in and around 2.5. Miguel, over to you. Quick plug for yourself. You've had a couple of interviews. Jack Grealish in particular, I saw that was he was very open, and even I know it wasn't quite an interview. John Stones in his press conference, very open, talking about Phil Foden. They're ticking a lot of the right boxes, England, I guess, if you're into those narrative sort of things for ahead of this potentially trying to win a World Cup.
Yeah, as they tend to do, and there is a good spirit in the camp. I think that's something that's come across, and it's something we've discussed a lot as well. Where I think tactics are obviously important, quality is obviously important, and this is relevant to Argentina as well. In a World Cup or any international tournament, in that sense, there is kind of a momentum that takes over for teams that do well. It's something that kind of just clicks, that carries them through. I do think England have that. Whether that means they can go and win it remains to be seen, but certainly I think they're in the top 4 or 5 teams that can. I do think this will be a massive test for them. And equally, for all people, people in the England camp talk, one of the lines that was put to me was basically, it's difficult to think of a more united group in this World Cup, and that comes across. But Senegal are actually possibly one of those, not least for the fact that, they're one of the squads with a manager who's been there longer than Southgate. Real belief in him. They've lost 2 of the best players this game, Mane through injury, Gueye to suspension, and he had to still, that's almost kind of just fired the team. It's just real conviction through it. And I think this is going to be a battle of a game for England. I'd be tempted by kind of a 1-0 either way. But I do think England's quality in the forward line will tell. I'd go 1-0 England maybe, but I'm going to England and BTTS no.
Yeah, 2.2. Mark, I was watching the coverage, whatever game BBC had on yesterday. I think it was the Portugal game, Korea game, and at halftime they were picking their England team, and Gary Lineker said he doesn't want to risk Kyle Walker ahead of the quarterfinals, so they are perhaps getting a small bit ahead of themselves.
Very unlike England. I'm quite confident England will get past this test. I think Senegal offer threats of their own, particularly if you look at the last match against Ecuador, as Ismaila Sarr on the opposite flank to Normal was terrorising Ecuador, and Idrissa Gueye was flourishing in his more advanced role, but he's now missing. And Iliman Ndiaye has come into the team in the last couple of matches and made an impact too. So they do have quality, but they are a team who are probably more combative and sort of having any sort of real exceptional technical quality, which England do have. Obviously, they'll probably defend deep here and try and play on the counter-attack. But they've looked to have a weakness from set pieces as well in this competition. And as we know, that's where England absolutely thrive. So that's an area of concern, as does just England's star quality, which, people trying to pick an England team, in particular that front 4, who do you pick, who do you leave out? But it's who do you bring off the bench, the finishers, as they call them. England got so much quality. If the game is tight, there's so many game changers who can come off the bench and win them this match. So no Mane, but also they're missing the 2 fullbacks who won the African Cup of Nations, who haven't been at this competition either. So Senegal are weakened. They will put on a decent show, I'm sure. Plenty of sort of workhorses and destroyers in that team. But ultimately, I think England are in a much better place right now. And I think there's 1.66 available on opening show for England to win this match, which looks far, far too big. I'm surprised it's now sort of, I wouldn't say it's drifted, but it's kind of nuzzled back up to about 1.58. So you can actually get England -3/4 at around 1.73, 1.74. That looks like a really good bet. In fairness, you get paid out if England win by any score, basically, just a full stakes if they win by 2 or more. But I'll take the bigger price, England to win under 3.5 goals at 2.08.
Okay. Yeah, and Adrian, I joke about it, the guys getting ahead of themselves, but look, it's hard not to get carried away. This only comes around once every 4 years, and England are right in the mix.
They are, yeah. I think the second half performance against Wales, the performance against Iran, they look really strong, didn't they? Really powerful. Yeah, I still have a lot of reservations about Gareth Southgate and his cautious tactics, but he did get a call right in the previous game. Flipping those wingers to the opposite sides did make a difference against Wales. I think this is a tough game. I agree with the guys, particularly Miguel. Really, I think Senegal, they got a team of winners. When you climb that mountain and you've won a tournament together, it shows you've got spirit, character, real resilience. I don't think they'll be easy to trample over at all here. There is a golf in quality though, and I think England will come through. So yeah, for me, I've got a slightly unusual bet here, slightly bigger odds. I think cautious start. Gareth Southgate, not going too crazy. England feeling their way into the game. Draw at halftime, but in the end they come good. Mark hinted at it with the use of the substitutes, etc. So draw at halftime, England to win, get 4.2, which I just think that's the most likely scenario. If I'm weighing up the game in my head ahead of kickoff, that's how I can see it playing out. So that one's a nice fun bet to maybe have.
Yeah, and for those, like, obviously the match would invariably be best price in a lot of markets, but particularly the competitiveness and the liquidity in the correct score and those halftime, full time, you'd be surprised what sort of price you get. So 4.2 seems quite big. Draw halftime, full time for Adrian and both Miguel and Mark going for England bets. Miguel going with England, both teams to score 2.2, and Mark England under 3.5 at 2.06. We'll move on to Monday afternoon's game, and we'll take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. This is a fascinating game. You can back Japan at 4.0, Croatia 2.2. The draw is available at 3.9. Both teams to score no is favored at 1.86. Japan getting 2.25 goal head start. And you can back the total, which is currently set at 2.25. So, Mark, we'll head over to you on this one. You have a fascinating bet coming up in our long shots, but this sort of game, like we were chatting about Croatia off air, they were good in spells at the start of that second half, for example, and then the last 20 minutes they were just hanging on. So it's hard to know how much this Croatia team still have in a big game, perhaps.
Yeah, I find this quite a tough one to call, actually. Croatia are rightfully favourites, but I've not been overly impressed by either team, despite their results and despite their passage to get this far. That game against Belgium was awful in the first half, considering what was at stake, and then the second half opened up, and unfortunately for him, Romelu Lukaku had one of those days. 5 attempts, a cumulative XG of 1.67, and didn't score. If you simulated those chances 10,000 times, there's a 90% chance Lukaku scores at least one goal. So Croatia very fortunate to even be at this stage. I thought they were pretty average against Morocco in the first game, then took advantage of a naive and knackered Canada in game 2, really, in that second half. But I do worry about them, actually. They've got obviously a superstar midfield, but when they're lacking control and obviously a little bit fatigued, they are gettable. And Gvardiol is kind of enhancing his reputation at centre half, but to do that, you're obviously being quite busy. He has been very, very busy and worked hard. So I do worry about them, particularly against the energy and enthusiasm of Japan, who I think have been, again, slightly fortunate to get this far. Could have been blown away in that first game. Were blown away in the first half against Spain as well, and were very, very ordinary when well favoured against Costa Rica as well. So they just made really, really slow starts in this competition. Across all 3 matches, Japan have generated 0.25 expected goals in the first half. In the second half, they've generated 3.55 XG. And as much as I love Ali McCoy dearly, he's one of the best around in what he does. He's been heaping praise on Moriyasu, the head coach, for his in-game changes, the tactical approach in the second half of things when Japan have been chasing games. But for me, he's not picking the best 11 from the off, and he's making mistakes, which is having to rectify in the second half. So, he's leaving his best forwards on the bench, which doesn't make too much sense to me. So I'm finding Japan hard to place. So I'm just kind of reserving judgment on them, but similar views on Croatia really as well. So I did think Croatia -1/4 was a consideration, but ultimately I've just gone down under 2.25 at a very similar price, because you get the 0-0, the 1-1 either side, or the 1-0 for either team on your side as well. I've already talked about how knockout football tends to see goals per game decrease, and I think this could be cagey, but I'm sure my view is probably different to what the other guys are thinking.
Yeah, for Miguel, so these tournament games are meant to be cagey. Mark's touched on, he's made a lot of good points about Japan and Croatia. So why is this game going to be the complete opposite to what Mark said?
Well, I do agree with him on Japan. I'm not sure how convinced I am with them, but they evidently have a propensity to react. My instinct is that they'll just have, when it comes right down to it, they'll have too much intensity for Croatia, who are a stale team in a few senses. But I think this is also one from that perspective that will open up. I don't think either team are really capable of keeping it. I think they might try and be cagey, but I don't think either have the quality to be that defensively sound. I mean, as Mark says there, Belgium should have been really away against Croatia. Croatia really should be out of the tournament. So while I think they might try and lock it down, I think they'll be caught. But then I don't really rate Japan Japanese defense either. So I'm going BTTS. And I think, again, this is one of those last 16 games that just opens up.
Yeah, Mark and Miguel both had a pop at Japan here, Adrian. So why do you like them at plus half a goal on the Asian handicap line?
Because I think it's an even game. I think that the odds are too wide between them. I think that Croatia aren't worthy of being as short as they are by comparison to Japan. I think as a tactical matchup, I think that the energy, because that's the big thing about Japan, isn't it? The fitness, the energy, and when they bother to press rather than dropping off. When they drop off, they're mediocre. Okay, they can break at pace, but I like them when they're busy harrowing the team in the other half, and that's how they got their goals against Spain. And if they do that to Croatia, particularly the midfield, I think they can really cause problems. I agree I agree more with Mark that it might be a low scoring game. I was initially looking at unders as well, but yeah, I just think that there won't be much in it. I really don't. And I think there's every chance that this could go to extra time, in which case Japan plus half a goal pays me out.
Yeah, Japan half a goal, 1.81. Miguel liking both teams to score, and unders play for Mark. We don't have to agree in every game, but that seems a tough game for a betting angle, maybe one to watch. Brazil South Korea is the Monday night game. The betting we have currently on matchbook.com, you can back Brazil at 1.25. The draw is 5.75. South Korea is 13.0. Both teams to score no is favoured a good bit at 1.53. The goal line is 2.5, and Korea are getting 1 3/4 goal head start. Miguel, are Brazil worthy favourites in the outright for you? Oh, we might have lost Miguel there. Adrian, we'll hand over to you. Brazil, South Korea. What do you like currently as a bet, perhaps?
I like Brazil to win the game. They rested their whole team, didn't they? In the last match, you could almost write that off as a non-event. So yeah, with them nicely freshened up, I think that they probably have too much for South Korea. Vicinius Junior, I think, might be a key player here. He's pacing behind. It's been a real asset to Brazil, hasn't it? And I think Korea, what they'll do a bit like the first game. They'll set up in very narrow blocks, maybe 4-4-2, 4-5-1, and they'll send Brazil wide, where really they don't have great fullbacks in terms of an attacking sense this year, Brazil, but they do have good wide players. And Vinicius, I think, will see a lot of the ball, and I think he can be the difference maker here. South Korea, I love their relentlessness. I love their willingness to keep going. They keep going on the attack, but I still think they're a limited team. And yeah, I think Brazil should win the game. But as we've seen already in this tournament, Brazil aren't full of goals. They aren't. They're not smashing everybody. I think that this could be another clinical 1-0, 2-0 kind of victory. Probably 2-0 is where I'd place it. Could even be 2-1 with South Korea's ability to keep at it. But yeah, Brazil and under 3.5 is my pick.
Yeah, Miguel, you're in agreement on Brazil and under 3.5.
Yeah, I think Brazil is just too powerful. Can't see anyone getting at them. Again, I'd almost think it kind of a 1-0, 2-0, maybe 3-0 Brazil win. Korea could have almost benefited from where Portugal were and the team they played and getting through to benefit them. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be in the last 16. So yeah, I think it'd be a comfortable Brazil win.
Yeah, Mark, I saw you nodding in agreement with South Korea. They did take full advantage of their circumstances, but even in that second half of Portugal, they weren't really troubling it until a breakaway goal from a corner that Portugal, weren't defending a lead or anything. They were sort of half going for the win as well, and they got caught in two minds. And they did get eight players back by the end of it, and there was only two. And even watching the goal, to labor on this goal, the South Korean defenders getting out, they were absolutely gone. They were I think there was 5 or 6 lads still in the other half when they scored the goal.
Yeah, it wasn't just a Portugal game either, where they probably had a bit of fortune with the selection. You could say, go back to the first game against Uruguay, who picked the wrong team, the wrong tactical approach, which allows South Korea to pick up a really vital point in that group, and it changes the complexion of their campaign entirely. And then, obviously, in game 2, they took advantage of the chaos that Ghana brought, and suddenly they're in a decent position. But they have been conceding quite a few big chances in matches, and they tend to thrived at their best in those open spaces. I don't think they'll get that against Brazil, because it's just going to be complete control and domination from the Samba boys. That tends to be their style. if you look at their matches so far, they've had 2 really tricky games against Serbia and Switzerland, who both tried to deny them all the opportunities and space they could. But even still, Brazil have dominated every match despite the result against Cameroon. They've had an 86% share of the total non-penalty expected goals in their 3 matches so far, which is quite frightening, really. So if they bring the noise, I can see them winning this game with room to spare. So yeah, Brazil and under 3.5 goals. It's just a case of do South Korea score or not, and I think it's more likely that they don't. So I don't see Brazil scoring 4 or more.
Okay, yeah, opposite of the last game, full agreement with the guys. Brazil under 3.5 goals. We'll move on to the Miguel's pick for the tournament. The Spain game here. Morocco are 7.2 currently in the 90-minute match odds. Spain 1.64. Draw is 3.95. Both teams to score no is favoured 1.68. Morocco getting a goal head start in the Asian handicap line, and the total is 2.25. Miguel, despite the fact you've referenced it before, you think Spain can do it, and they are particularly strong, perhaps against teams at their level or a little bit stronger. But you're expecting them to struggle here today, and you're looking at the under. So this is quite a big price.
Well, this is it's to me, this strikes me as a little bit like the USA Netherlands game, and suddenly, for all that there is one heavyweight favorite with a more distinguished competition history, a lot of people kind of shifting towards, I think USA/Morocco will do this, and that's something you're hearing more now rather than the favorites. Where ultimately, when it comes right down to it, I think Spain have better quality, have a better idea of football. I think they can raise it. I suppose the Japan game was either a wake-up call or a warning. A wake-up call to kind of correct things, or a warning that they're not good enough. I don't think the latter is the case. So the bigger question is whether they're sharp enough to beat Morocco. I think they will be. But I think if that's the case, Morocco are very good at keeping it tight. I think this could be one of those long games. I'm tempted by 1-0 Spain, but just because of how Morocco defend and to give us kind of that opportunity for either way, I'm going to go under 1.5.
Okay, yeah, so that covers 1-0 Spain, obviously, but as Miguel touched on, if the unthinkable happens, 1-0 Morocco is covered as well as 0-all, 3.03 under 1.5 goals. Same thinking, Adrian, again, just a little bit more cautious here.
Good price, isn't it? That I like that under 1.5. I think that is a tempter. I'd be inclined to almost steal that. I've gone for under 2.25 goals, which is a slightly skinnier price because I don't see 3 goals in the game. Just don't. Morocco, we know about their brilliant defensive record. Spain, great team, but not. I know that they wiped the floor with Costa Rica, but since then I'm not that convinced by their fluency or their ability to create loads of chances. I mean, look at the final section of that game against Japan. Spain struggled, didn't they? They couldn't really break down Japan when they needed to. I like Morocco's energy as well, like that whole pressing. Amrabat's having a great tournament. Ziyech and Bifal as well have been good, but I think the Spain team have a glaring weakness if you press their goalie and back line. I said it in the previous game after the Germany one. Germany hassled them and they made mistakes. And how did the goals come about against Japan? It was through them hassling them. And I think Morocco are one of the best hasslers in the competition. So I think they've got a chance, but I don't think they'll win. I can't sort of back them to win, but I think they can make life uncomfortable. But yeah, I'm going under 2.25, but I do like Miguel's bet.
In some ways, Mark, you perhaps think they might be able to win. You're playing it safe on the Asian handicap line, but it's a big enough 1 plus 1.0 at 1.86.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything the guys have said. I think it'll be low scoring. Under 2.25 was very much the secondary option I was going to take here, because I think Morocco can be competitive in this match. Only 4 nations in the competition have conceded fewer shots from inside the penalty area so far. They've had some decent opponents in that time as well. And just like Adrian, I've been less convinced about Spain than possibly Miguel, particularly in the last 2 matches. I think there are weaknesses in that team, and just baffled really by their lack of control in the second halves of matches. They've had 94% of the share of expected goals in the first half of games, but that drops to 42% in the second half in this competition. Also, just the lack of penetration. I know they scored 7 against Costa Rica. They had about 1,000 passes or over 1,000 passes against Japan in that final game. They only had about 11 or 12 shots, and that worries me actually against a team who are very well set up as Morocco are. So, if the guys, I think it's going to be a low-scoring tie, it brings in the likelihood of not just an upset, but Morocco keeping things competitive and not losing by multiple goals. So, I think there's obviously you can easily play the under 2.25 as a decent price, but I think Morocco +1 also has its claims as well. So, very much same opinion as everyone.
Yeah, unders or perhaps a Morocco line for the guys there. Moving on to the final game, we'll fly through this. Portugal versus Switzerland. Portugal favourites 1.9, draws 3.3, Switzerland 4.5. Both teams to score no is favoured 1.75. Goal lines around 2.5. I think everyone's in broad agreement. Switzerland plus half a goal, so we'll be very brief here. Adrian, make the case.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realise we were all in broad agreement. That's good. Yeah. No, I think I just see it as a very even game. I think that Switzerland have proven over the course of the competition that they've got a threat up front. I agree with Mark's comments earlier about Mbola. I think he's been excellent so far. And we know that the structure of the team is really robust. Portugal, I don't know. I'm not sure how good they really are. They've got the names, but I still don't believe they're a truly outstanding team at this tournament. I think this could easily go Switzerland's way. We know they've upset a lot of big nations in the run up to the World Cup, and I think that they can at least get a draw here. That's my thinking. Take
Miguel?
extra time.
Yeah, I think Switzerland have got a lot of tournament experience. I still don't actually rate Portugal that much. And Switzerland, I feel like they've been on the brink of something for some time. They arguably, I mean, for all I've been talking of Spain over the last 45 minutes, over the last 2 years, Switzerland, they could have put them out in the Euro 2020 quarterfinal. And I think they will do that to Portugal. This could go the distance. But Switzerland is such an awkward team to play, and I think there's value there.
Mark?
Yeah, just exactly what the guys have said. I think Portugal, can be capable of greatness, but too often now they've underwhelmed and uninspired, really. And there's a bit of a red herring here. Portugal beat Switzerland 4-0 back in June in Lisbon in the Nations League, but don't read too much into that. It was pretty much a Swiss second team. When they have produced their best 11, they've been very competitive. And even in that game against Serbia, everyone's telling us how good the Serbian attack is and how they'll bring the noise and bring the fight to them. They only had 12 shots and forced 2 corners against Switzerland in a must-win match. That's testament to the Swiss setup, really. They racked up over 3 expected goals themselves and looked very comfortable. And just look at the game against Brazil. A Brazilian team are short of 3-1 to win the whole tournament outright. Switzerland pushed them hard. I just think that continuity, that consistency, that togetherness makes them a really awkward opponent in knockout football.
Okay, yeah. So agreement and maybe rare agreement, but from the guys here. Adrian, we're going to get to your long shot and best bet as I know you have to head off. Tell us very briefly, Japan won, Croatia won 7.0. So this game is going the distance.
Yeah, as I've outlined earlier, I think that this is a really, really tight contest. I think that there's every chance that Croatia might lead in the game, but that Japan might fight back. That's been the pattern, hasn't it, for their 2 victories so far? I think stylistically, it's a match that suits Japan because Croatia will have the ball and they can break on them. Plus, as I've outlined earlier, they're young, enthusiastic, and unbelievable fitness levels. I think will test Croatia, particularly in that second half. So yeah, in my head, I think this is the most likely scoreline. So 7.0 for 1-1.
And very briefly, your best bet is going to be France and under 3.5 goals, which is above evens, 2.02.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about it earlier. I think that Poland are solid enough. Historically, this fixture is a low-scoring affair. All of Poland's last 7 games have been under 2.5, but ultimately they're not good enough to withstand France, in my opinion. I think Mbappe and co should get the job done, but I don't see it being an absolute tonking. So yeah, France and under 3.5 to get it at evens. Happy days.
Okay, Adrian, jump off there and best of we will chat to you next week for the quarterfinal stage. Mark,
thank you.
I'm very interested and fascinated in this halftime and full time. A Croatian halftime draw, full time 18.0.
Yeah, just following tournament trends so far. Obviously, a very small sample, caveat alert. But Japan's ability to battle back from losing positions, it's admirable, really. As I said in the show, they've generated just 0.25 expected goals across all 3 of their first halves of this competition. compare that to the 3.55 expected goals in the second half. And if you think, like Adrian does, that Croatia might be able to monopolise control and possession and territory, there also is that element that they're no spring chickens anymore. We saw the average age of that starting 11 against Belgium. They are pretty old. I do think perhaps Japan's rock and roll approach in that second half, when they increase the intensity, the press, the spirit that they have, the enthusiasm, it's troubled Germany and Spain. So why can't it trouble Croatia? If they are chasing a game, it wouldn't be a huge surprise to see them battle back and nick something from this either. So I just think in the price, it's worth a little interest. Get some beer money down on 18.0 for Croatia to lead at half time and the match to end in a draw.
Okay, yeah, maybe fun one for those watching in the pub, perhaps, as Mark alluded to there. Miguel, this is so if we spent the last 45 minutes sticking with Spain, you're going to stick with them here in a crack score, but I can see you watching this very nervously.
I referenced this in the longer discussion, but I'm going to go 1-0 Spain. I think it just has that sort of feel to it. I think Spain will be sharp at the back. I totally take what the guys are saying and their vulnerabilities, but I think some of that comes from application. And just how, it's almost like when they went 1-0 up against Germany, it's actually been a bit of a turning point for Spain in the group stage. And that pretty much confirmed they were through. They slacked off. It meant they went into the Japanese game not 100%, I'd say. But I think, given the way Luis Enrique manages as well and the intensity he has, I think we'll see the effect of that for this. I don't think Spain will be slack again, at least not for this game.
Okay, yeah, so that'll be a cagey game for Spain, perhaps just to get through. So we'll move on to best bets. Incidentally, if you don't have a Matchbook account, enter the bonus code podcast. You get up to £50 in cash and double the odds on podcast best bet. So any of the three guys' selections, Adrian's gone for France and under 3.5 at 2.02, so 4.04. Mark, your selection is going to be pro England. You mentioned you were surprised at the match odds, so you're incorporating that with an unders play, gets you a pretty decent price.
Yeah, England to win under 3.5 goals at 2.06. I think that's good enough, actually, considering you get the 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, and the 2-1 onside. I just think there's a mismatch, really, in terms of ability in the final third and squad depth as well. Senegal will be difficult to beat. They'll be obdurate, of course they will, and they'll probably defend deep and try and make life difficult. They've got a plethora of players in midfield who can really battle hard and make England work for this. But missing Idrissa Gueye is a big blow. Sadio Mane, of course, missing as well. So they are lacking a couple of their star names. And I guess during the qualification, during the group stage, they probably edged the game, a tight game against the Dutch, a poor Dutch team. If it wasn't for Mendy's errors, they might have been able to get something out of that match. But negotiated Qatar pretty much unfussily. But the Ecuador game, they really came to the fore. But this is a completely different set of circumstances. They needed to win that match. I think they'll be much more sort of defensively minded in this game. And I just back England's strength and depth, particularly off the bench, to make a difference when it matters. And I can see them winning this game by sort of a 1-0, 2-0 scoreline.
Okay. And over to you, Miguel. Your best bet of the round of 16, Argentina, and over 2.5 goals, 2.2. So that's tonight, isn't it? Saturday night? Yeah,
I'm going to it. And I quite fancy an Argentina 3-0 or 4-0, I have to say. I'm not sure whether they'll win it, but I was at the game. I was actually at all of Argentina's games. And it's interesting to see, again, how dictated they are by the feel around the team. And at the moment, it does seem like the win over Mexico has calmed something in them. I think got a conviction and confidence about them, and I can see them winning, unless there's some sort of event that kind of turns things and makes them believe that it's not going to be their day. But I don't think it's going to happen with Australia. I think Australia they've done really well to get this far, but I think they've possibly run their course. I can see it's been 3 or 4-0 Argentina.
Okay, yeah, some nets put up. If you've missed any of the bets, Matchbook Insights, it'll be open about 2 hours, and that will cover Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday games. And if you are looking to perhaps do multiples, Miguel's touched on in the last group games, it could be maybe an under 1.5 one. Will invariably be best price. So do check out Matchbook Betting Exchange. You can do multiples on the exchange. My thanks to Mark. My thanks to Miguel. We will be back for the quarterfinals next week on Wednesday, I think it is. But for now, take care. Enjoy the weekend's football. A lot coming at you, and we'll chat to you next week. Bye bye.